All right, for this boot camp, we're going to make a value scale, 2 value scales on this small sheet of drawing paper. You need a Prismacolor ebony pencil. So this is the ebony. And you need a 2H pencil. We're going to use a 2H. So you may have the blue General's pencils like this. Or you may have another kind, but we generally use these in our class, 2H. And then you also need a 2B. So we've got a 2B. And you need a 4B. And if you want to use a pencil sharpener, you can use a pencil sharpener. And that's all we need. No erasers or anything else. For this boot camp, because we're really just going to be focusing on our pressure skills. Before we can, or pressure and our blending. Before we start on this though, we're going to go over a little bit of information with your pencil. So if you think about the hardness of a pencil is very much like a number line, okay? And so if I draw a line, I guess I should sharpen my pencil. Here, let me do this again in ebony. Okay, if I draw a line, and this represents my pencil hardness scale, right in the middle is kind of like our halfway point. When I move this way, I am moving towards the B side, and B stands for like bold or black. Okay, this lead is very soft. Okay, when we move the other direction, these are our H's, and H stands for hard. Okay, and so these these values are going to be lighter. Okay, these are darker. Okay, so if we were to move towards the B side, about the greatest B we would ever work with is a 9B, and the greatest H we would ever work with would be about a 9H. And somewhere in the middle is this pencil we call an HB. In the United States, we use a pencil that is labeled HB, and you may have used one of these, Ticonderogas. If you ever notice, it's labeled HB. Sometimes we call them a number 2 pencil, okay, in the United States. HB marks us right in the middle, and we go along the way. So if we kind of all the way down, we would have like HB represents 1B. So then we get 2B, 3B, 4B, 5B, all the way up to 9B. If we move the other direction and we were going lighter, we would have degrees all the way down, all the way until you get to the 9H. So we would get, so if this HB represents 1H, so maybe this is like 2H, 3H, 4H, 5H, you get the idea, okay? Ebony is way out here because it is dark. Very dark. So our ebony lives over here. Our 4B lives about right here. Our 2B lives about right here. And our 2H lives about right here. So these are the 4 pencils that we're going to use to create this value scale. So let's take our paper. And we're going to start by, you're going to need to bend this in half because the top half you're going to use for just the regular pencil. And then you're going to be doing another value scale with colored pencils. So we're going to use just the top, but actually since I don't really want to reach over the white paper, I'm going to be working on the bottom area, and then we'll just flip it, I think. Okay, so I'm going to take my ebony pencil and make a long, 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 long rectangle. Okay. And then once I have that done, I am going to divide it in half. Once I have that in half, I'm going to divide each of these halves in half again. So now I have 4 rectangles. And then I'm going to divide each of those in half. So I end up with 8 sections. Okay? And then we're going to number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And I would say before you go any farther, somewhere off to the side, put your art ID number on there. So get that on there before you go any farther. And then what we're going to do, we're going to start with the lightest one. So I'm starting with my 2H. And keep in mind that the number 1 box is not going to have anything in it at all. Okay? So I'm holding my pencil very much like this at a quite an extreme angle. Okay? And again, just like the colored pencil boot camp we did, the goal is not to see any pencil strokes. So very, very, very lightly in box 2. I'm going to use the same number 2 pencil in box 3, but this time I want to press a little harder. Because as we think about value, value is the relative lightness and darkness of a hue. And it is one of our 7 elements of art. So value, again, is the lightness and darkness of a view, or a hue or a color. So now I'm going to come into box 4. If you want to start with the 2H, you absolutely can, but you're going to have to press even harder to get it to do anything. And this is when I would say you're safer, instead of using this 2H and pressing too hard, because you're going to end up with pencil strokes, and we don't want any pencil strokes. No pencil strokes. I am instead going to switch over to my 2B. Okay, so I'm switching over to my 2B. Again, I'm holding it at quite an angle, and I'm going very, very lightly. So you can go back and forth, left and right, up and down, squiggle, circles, weird little motions, but you can see that we're getting light to dark here. I'm going to use the same 2B pencil, come back again on box 5, and again the goal is to have no pencil strokes showing whatsoever. So I'm going to go back and forth and left and right and up and down, pressing harder, but not too hard to where we can see pencil strokes. No pencil strokes. I tell students sometimes if you stand back or blur your eyes, you should see a logical progression from light to dark. All right, so now we've got there. I am now going to switch away from my 2B, and I'm going to switch over to my 4B. Again, holding at an angle, and wow, I probably need to sharpen this. This is really worn down. So I'm going to put it in my sharpener. And that is plenty sharp enough. That's probably too sharp. And I'll gather these and put them on my desk, and then I'll throw them away when I'm totally finished. Okay. Okay. Holding at an angle again. Get a base layer down. Extreme angle. I have my pencil almost laying flat against the table Because if I have it too upright, I'm going to end up with pencil strokes. And again, don't want pencil strokes. Pencil strokes are not my friend here. Okay, pretty good. Now we're going to go a little bit darker. I am still using my 4B. Don't want to see any strokes. No strokes. So I'm pressing harder and harder as we go down the value scale. I didn't have much pressure over here at all, but once I'm down here, I've got quite a bit more pressure. Pretty good. Now I am going to switch over to my ebony for my last box. So for my ebony box, I am pressing. This is the one box where you get to press as hard as you can because there should be absolutely no white of the paper showing through by the time you're done. And unfortunately, where my camera is set up and where the light is set up, it's picking up a glare. So it's kind of hard to see. I'll move the light in a minute. Let's see if that helps when I get a little bit farther. I don't know. So that's pretty solid. I don't know if you can really tell. There, if I tip it. Okay, and if you look at mine, boxes 6 and 7, when I tip it, boxes 6 and 7 look very similar. So if you find that you're in that situation, you could always come back. And I'm going to have to move some things around, some light. I'm going to come back on here. Make this one a little bit darker. I'm using my ebony to make box 7 a little bit darker. So that when I tip it up, you'll see the difference. Okay, let's see if I tip it now. There, you can kind of see the difference. So you can see I go from light all the way to dark. Again, I've got my ebony kind of down there. I think I was using like the 4B in here, the 2B in here, and the 2H over in there to create that whole value scale. Okay. All right, once you have that, I'm actually going to rotate this around now, because we now have to do the same thing with a colored pencil. So again, you've got a long rectangle, divide it in half, divide each of those halves in half, divide each of those in half again. Okay. And we've got 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now for this one, you want to choose a colored pencil that is something other than, you don't want a light orange yellow or yellow orange, and you don't want a yellow because those are just too difficult to use. No light yellow, those are not good. No peach. I wouldn't even do orange. Orange is difficult too. But red would work, or red orange. This one is blue. Blue would work. Brown would work. Violet would work. What else do I have in my bag? This is a lighter green. It would probably work. But this darker green is going to be easier to work with. So you get the idea. Get a colored pencil that isn't too light, and you're going to recreate this scale from light to dark using your colored pencil. And this should be easier than what we did for our color wheel, because you have now blended all of this up here using good pressure. You had your color wheel as your first attempt to blending with colored pencils and not having strokes. So this is the same thing, but you're really controlling it even more to create value. Again, when we talk about value, value is the lightness and darkness of a hue or a color. So I am just applying my violet all the way down, gently, almost the same pressure level all the way from boxes 2 through 8. Okay. Then I'm going to come back, make this one a little darker. And remember, with the colored pencils, you can't really erase. This is all going to be controlled by your pressure. Okay. So I've got to come in here now, get this cleaned up. A little darker here. So I'm up to 4, now we're going over to 5. Six. Now 7. And 8 should be nice and solid to where you can't see any of the white of the paper coming through. Now for mine, the jump between 8 and 7 is too extreme, so I'm going to come back to my 7, make my 7 darker. Work on my 6. And then my 5. Just stretch it down. 4, and 3, and 2. And I'm going to leave the 1 alone. So if I tip it up, you should be able to see a better light to dark. Okay. So once this is done, make sure you photograph this and then save the photograph of this because you're going to need it for later. Okay.